Welcome to virtual photography, where video games and photography meet. I'm Invisiblekatana. Thank you for braving the weather. I know how crazy it's been. Not what any of us expected, I would assume, for a convention weekend like this. So thank you guys for popping in. This will be an introduction to virtual photography and video games and a bit of a lesson on it, just kind of my personal tale with it, what it is, kind of what I think it can do for the community, a couple of different aspects. This is sort of an expanded version of a video that I actually have coming up on my YouTube channel. So I'm Invisiblekatana, and we'll do all the shameless plugs later on. But to get things going, virtual photography, as you guys can see, is utilizing photo modes within video games to take either pictures or to make videos to kind of share with the community. It's a practice that's been growing for a while. It's been in games for a little minute, and it's actually been in games for quite a while. It just hasn't really blown up. The first game that is officially considered to be the first game to have a photo mode is actually Gran Turismo 4 on the PlayStation 2. So even back on PS2, using the power of USB 1.1, you could actually utilize photo modes in video games. And of course, with it being Gran Turismo and that being a Sony-owned game, it's only progressed over time. Gran Turismo is definitely one of the games that has all of the really detailed features when it comes to photo modes and actually utilizing cameras in the way that they would be used in the real world. They even use actual stock photography as their background. So if you ever look up that game, you'll probably notice that the backgrounds look insanely real, and that's because they actually are real. And of course, the graphics for the cars look good. So when I first dealt with that one, I was like, it's insane how good it looks, and it's because the background is actually a real background. And then of course, just highly detailed cars. But there are a lot of different photo modes out there. Of course, there are games that have a lot of different features. There are some games, this is Zenless Zone Zero. Unfortunately, they don't have an official photo mode yet, but this is actually from a photo mode event that they had, which they've done twice. So a lot of people in the community, myself included, are hoping that it actually becomes a permanent feature within the franchise. But there are tons of different games that have lots of different features, and we'll go through the good and the bad when it comes to photo mode. But in general, photo mode and virtual photography is something that's been growing quite a while over the years. I would say it's gonna take long. It's one of those things where, just like any random YouTuber, they could have millions of subscribers and you're like, I've literally never heard of this person. That's how I see photo mode at this point. There are tons of people in the community, but it's still a very small part of gaming. There are some companies that are really deep into it, and then there are other companies that aren't so much, but they'll still utilize it. And once again, we'll get into all that as we kind of go throughout the panel. But to kick things off, I'll kind of start with my official journey with photo mode, and we'll come back to this slideshow later because it's 20 minutes long, so you guys can see a bunch of random pictures later. But my introduction with photo mode was actually through Uncharted 4. So Uncharted 4 is definitely one of my favorite games. I love the Uncharted franchise. And when Uncharted 4 came out, I played through the game, and I don't think it was until after I actually beat the game that I even utilized the actual photo mode that's within it. And I played around a little bit. I maybe took like 3 or 4 pictures, and then that was kind of the extent of it for me. Like, I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. I just didn't really get into it at the time. And this is actually more recent footage. I spent more time getting this footage for the panel than I ever actually did practicing photo mode when I originally had the game. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a cool little feature, but it wasn't something that really stuck out to me until much later. And that actually came with the Horizon Zero Dawn franchise, or the Horizon franchise in general. And they have tons and tons of features, definitely one of my favorite photo modes out there. But that's where things really picked up for me personally, and it was like, okay, I'm starting to really get into this. I'd always been into videography. I had my YouTube channel for quite a while, but I hadn't really done photography itself. I always just did video work, and then when I got into college, I had a photojournalism class, and that's really where things started to pick up for me, where I realized like I actually enjoy photography, and also it's a lot simpler. You don't really have to edit nearly as much, so that was also a plus. And once I started to get into photography for myself, that's when things started to kind of change for me video game wise. And it was like, okay, well, these photo modes already exist. There's games, of course, if I'm already buying the game, it means I already enjoy it. I want to get the experience of this world in a brand new way. And then that's where you get to utilize photo mode. You can have all sorts of things where, you know, as you guys can see, there's filters, you can zoom in, zoom out, you have all different characters, action poses, you can take pictures of the world itself. Some games will limit you more than others, this being Naughty Dog, of course, that made Uncharted. One of the unfortunate things that Naughty Dog has continued to do even to this day is what they have for their photo mode is called an orbiting camera. So as you guys can see, I'm just kind of circling around the character. As good as that is, it's incredibly limiting compared to some of the free cams that exist in other photo modes. So everything that you take a picture of has to have the main character in line of sight. So even though you can get some really cool stuff, as you guys can see, it's like, okay, I can mess around and do all this stuff. In other games that have free cam, I wouldn't have to really be contained by the main character being in a certain position or having to go into photo mode or go out of photo mode to just make an attempt to get a different type of picture. So it's one of the things that they have where you can still get some amazing shots. And of course, like I said, it just depends on what you do. Like just about anything, you practice it enough, you can figure out how to get the shots that you want, especially with the game you're familiar with over time. But the orbiting camera is something that is unfortunately limiting in a lot of games that are really, really well done. Yes. Yeah.
I got it for you.
Thank you. Yeah. So I didn't know if they would love me to do that, but yes, we'll turn the lights off. You guys can see it a lot better. There you go. So, like I was saying, with Uncharted being Naughty Dog's game, this was the first game that I really dived into with photo mode, and I played around a little bit, didn't really do much with it, and then for this panel, I decided to get the PlayStation 5 update and just play around with it. And also, I have the update for this as well as Lost Legacy, which is the DLC, and they actually added a couple of features in that, which you guys will see, and it's definitely something that I thought was a really interesting aspect for photo mode, where you develop the characters and everything that they do story-wise, but they actually did put the effort in to realize that people are advertising their game. People enjoy Uncharted, so they're taking pictures, especially with it being kind of the Indiana Jones of video games. You're going all over the place. It makes sense to have a photo mode for this kind of franchise. So them actually updating it a little bit was actually a really cool thing that they did. And that's something that's definitely grown over time. Of course, we've had games, like I mentioned, the very first being Gran Turismo, but even before that, we've had games that are photo mode adjacent, I would consider them, and that one of them would be Pokemon Snap. I'm sure a lot of us, if not played it, have definitely heard of it. The whole point is taking pictures in that game. So it's kind of built around a photo mode where it's like, hey, capture these Pokemon, so much so that they literally made another version of that game on the Switch. So they understood that there are games like that. Metal Gear VR Missions, if anyone is familiar with that game, they have what I would consider more of a model viewer, but technically you would go through the game, and as you progress through the game, they had certain models that you could actually get closer and closer to take pictures of, but that was only saved on your actual memory card, so it wasn't the same as in like actual photo mode. But that's something that's fortunately been changed. It's taken forever, but with the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, that is officially the first Metal Gear game that's had a photo mode, despite so many Metal Gear games constantly. I think every single one pretty much has a camera in it for some reason, but Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake is the first game to officially have a photo mode. But definitely something that I've always enjoyed, and I will actually skip ahead a little bit so you guys can see. Yeah, there we go. So this is Lost Legacy. This is the type of stuff that you'll do. So this is footage of trying to just practice getting as many shots as I can, and you're in a firefight, you try to get some cool shots, you do what you can and just have fun with it, and that I think is definitely one of the greatest elements of photo mode. Does anyone in here actually practice photography or at least enjoy it? Okay, so photo mode is definitely one of those things where I think it helps people in a way that you might not expect, because it's something that's so outside the realm of typical photography. But it's certainly something like, if of course the people that actually practice photography, I've done it myself, I think it actually helps, where you can go through, obviously you're getting things that you wouldn't possibly get. I mean, I'm not gonna be in any war zones. I know that's a real thing. I'm not gonna do that myself. So, I'll stick to Uncharted and just enjoy it. But I think it allows for you to have a lot of different leeways in terms of getting the type of shots you want, being able to repeat things. Of course, you can just go back to levels over and over again where you want this character doing a certain thing, or you can at least attempt it depending on what action sequence you're in. And you can just play around all sorts of things, filters, stickers. This game, of course, adds, as you guys may have seen a little bit there, you can actually change the face. That was something you couldn't do in Uncharted 4, and they added that in Lost Legacy, where you could actually change the expressions of the characters. This is actually Horizon, so this was where I really picked things up and kind of got my start with photo mode and really dived into it 100%. And this is actually an old video that I did where I was doing what's called the one spot photo mode challenge. And so I would just find a location on the map, I would go there, and once I paused it in photo mode, I had to at least take 5 pictures and do something different with each one to kind of justify, spending that time there. And I would say Horizon is definitely one of the best games when it comes to photo mode. You can change the time of day, you can change poses. They have all sorts of stuff, which once again, with this being an ongoing franchise, they've also made inclusions, which you guys will see a little bit later when they made the second game. They added extra poses, all sorts of silly things, just to throw it out there. Spider-Man has some amazing stuff. Insomniac Games did a really great job with their photo mode, and you guys will definitely be seeing that later as well. But all of these things, as they've kind of built up over time, I've gotten into it deeper and deeper. You start with Uncharted, and it's like, okay, I took a couple pictures. Horizon comes out, and then I really dive into it, and that's when it started to pick up where I was like, I wish every game had a photo mode. And so I'd be playing other games. Anyone here play Nier Automata? Or have you guys seen Nier Automata?
I played Nier.
I love that game, like a lot of people do, but it being sort of a post-apocalyptic thing, I was constantly taking pictures in that game. It doesn't have a photo mode, which I always wished it did, but once I started to get into it because of Horizon and realizing I actually enjoy taking photos in my games, it started to open things up where I was like, oh, I've always appreciated games. I've always been interested in the history of games, so it certainly helps me that I was already kind of that nerdy about it. But it starts to make you look at the details of the characters more, especially as graphics, of course, have progressed, PS4, PS5 now. The amount of details that you don't realize are actually playing out in front of you, you can really dive into when it comes to photo mode. Like, I never really look at characters and stuff like that back in the day on PS3 and PS2 and before, but once photo mode came into play, it was like I could actually pay attention to the things that I look at in real life. When I look at architecture, or I look at just the world in general, or clothing or characters or any random thing that happens, you start to notice that as you actually practice through photo mode. Yes?
I'm gonna actually picture this little thing here. That joy that I found in photo mode. Neo 2 was my first time actually messing with the digital photography mode. That was like this that robust. Yes, I love seeing all the high detail that they developed put into games. And like, is there anything that you noticed with Horizon specifically where you put it in photo mode and you cannot catch the normal game?
Honestly, there's a lot. I would say more so in the second game. The graphics for the second game compared to the first are honestly like astronomical. The things that I've zoomed in on, you can literally see like the pores in the face of the character. Like, they actually have that much detail, and that's not something you'll see. Maybe you'll see it in a cutscene potentially, depending on the cutscene, but I would definitely say realizing the advancements in technology just as a whole in gaming is something I noticed from photo mode. Just being able to, like I said, you can see the pores in characters' faces. You can see what the character is looking at. They have actual reflections. Even in this first game, they have actual reflections on the character's eyes. So stuff like that I've definitely noticed where it's, yeah, so all sorts of things are kind of just on the surface, like they're there, but it's weird to say underneath the surface because they're literally in front of us. But photo mode is what allows you to really see those kinds of details. Like getting lens flares and stuff like that, you might notice that as you're playing through the game and just looking around, but you can use that as a part of your camera, just like they do in films and photography anyway. Getting lens flares and things, and doing silly stuff like this and having poses. But with the advancement of photography, or specifically photo mode, something that definitely grew is the community itself. And this is also, once again, an old video that I did, one spot photo mode, go to a location, just see what I can do and kind of just share that online. So with the community, let's skip ahead here, because that'll be more of that, and you guys will be seeing a lot more Horizon because it's one of the best. But skipping to the actual community aspect of it, with photo mode still growing, the community still grows. This is from Spider-Man Miles Morales. This is another one of my one-spot videos where I was just in the air and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna play around with this. The community is huge. The community grows every single day. Like, honestly, I think I'd say in less than 10 years, I think photo mode would be pretty much ubiquitous with gaming. It's already grown to the point that some companies actually promote their photo modes as a part of the actual game, where they'll have commercials like, hey, we have a photo mode. Some companies actually do updates to their photo mode. Spider-Man has tons of updates. One of the greatest features that they introduced in Miles Morales is, you guys have seen me switching the costumes. No other game that I've experienced has that in photo mode, where you can actually change the costume in photo mode. Despite tons of games having tons of costumes, this is the only franchise that I've seen do it. I'm assuming that they're gonna keep that, which has me very excited for Wolverine when that ends up coming out. Hopefully it actually comes out later this year. But I consider Spider-Man to have the greatest photo mode, and honestly, I think that's my #1 feature is you can switch costumes in photo mode. And they go crazy with costumes in the Spider-Man games. Each character has at least like 15 costumes. Every costume has 4 variations, and that's a lot that you can play around with, including villains, moves, locations, all sorts of content. So for the Spider-Man games in particular, it helps the community build, because Spider-Man, being of course Spider-Man, is one of the most popular characters on the face of this planet. It's free advertising for them to have not only a good game, but a good game with a good photo mode. People are gonna take pictures in different costumes. People are gonna take pictures with different villains, different heroes, because there are other characters in these games. And it allows for the community to actually grow and develop together with the actual companies. This is specifically Alan Wake 2. The reason I put this in here is because Remedy Entertainment is very serious about their photo modes. They actually, I would say they're probably the #1 supporter of their own photo mode, where even to this day, they have what's called Fade and Friday, which is actually based on Control, which didn't come out, I think that came out in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And even to this day, they still have every single Friday, people will share pictures from that game, and it's just showing off the main character. With Control 2 coming out, I'm sure that'll swell back up because you actually play the main character's brother, of course, same last name, so it'll still be Fade and Fridays, and that's something that they've supported from day one, ever since they've had the photo mode, and they've advanced their photo mode. When it was in Control, it was much simpler, and then when they went to Alan Wake 2, they definitely increased some things. They added lights, like a lot of the feature you guys are seeing, none of this stuff existed when it was Control. It was very bare bones. It was still good, you could get some cool pictures. The game looks amazing, so you could get some good content there, but it was much simpler compared to this, where you have lights, you have filters, you can change the color of the lights. They even put it where they have camera presets, so if you want to do macro photography, you can just choose that. Not many other games have that sort of aspect. It's there with the lens, where you can just choose the type of lens you want. Most games, you just kind of figure it out yourself, and you pick what you want. But they have a little setup for you where it's like, hey, if you want to do this type of thing, you can do landscape, you can do portrait. They actually just have that as a preset where you just pick your lens, switches it up for you, and then you kind of just play around from there, doing whatever you want, filters, things like that. So with the community growing on both ends, it's definitely something that adds to photo mode, because you get to see a lot of people sharing their pictures online. Not too many people actually do video. So if you look it up on YouTube, admittedly, I think I might be the person that probably has like the most virtual photography actual videos on YouTube, but there's definitely a lot out there. There are people, they'll make some videos, you probably do like a couple, and then it's the usual YouTube thing. If it doesn't really blow up, you'll see people make like 6 videos and then it's kind of gone. So whenever I check stuff out, it's like, oh, this is really good stuff and it's fun to watch, and then people kind of just disappear a little bit, unfortunately. But if you go on, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, stuff like that, the actual photo side of it is nonstop. Any game that has a photo mode, you can find it for the most part. But the community is definitely there. It just has its different elements, but it's consistently growing, and it's definitely something that you see as newer games come out. Some people actually reference photo modes. Capcom, of course, has Resident Evil coming out. They have, I think, 3 games coming out this year. So they have Capcom, they have Resident Evil 9, Pragmata, and then Onimusha. I would assume all 3 of those games are going to have photo mode, because that's something that they've kind of stuck with, and they've definitely developed that over time, because there's an entire segment based around something Capcom did, which we'll talk about later on. But I would assume that they're going to be advancing that technology and keeping it in all of those games. And when they make those announcements, I've seen comments where people ask like, hey, is this going to have a photo mode? I've certainly asked that myself. There are tons of games where I'm like, hey, let's see photo mode with this, because you want the detail of these characters. You want to be able to do things where, of course, this is Naughty Dog again with The Last of Us. Of course, a bit more gruesome and obviously more mature, akin to Resident Evil from time to time. But there are so many games and there are so many people that are like, hey, if you've done photo mode before, can we see the update of photo mode in this one? Can we get an advancement of photo mode? Can we just see what's going to end up happening? And as we do that, you see the community kind of banding together. There are tons of individual groups where they'll do themes for the week, themes for the day even. Tons of people will say like, hey, what are just random tips that you would put out there for the world, so that other people that are either already in virtual photography or getting into virtual photography can actually follow. And so the community will share tips with each other. Of course, you just share pictures online for anything that you want to do. There are actually virtual photography awards. I believe they just did it probably like last week. The Fourth Focus, if you guys want to look into that, it's a collective of people, and literally every year they will do an actual virtual photography award show. And there are also other people that have done it as well. So it's out there. It's at the point where there are photography awards. There are people in the community that have groups. There are themes consistently. This is Ghost of Tsushima. You guys will be seeing a lot of the Ghost games, because this is all in photo mode. They have one of the best features ever where you can actually have a moving background. Only the Ghost games have that so far. Spider-Man kind of has it, but it's really just for effects. If you want to get something out of the way, you can kind of move an explosion or little stuff like that. But for the Ghost games, you can literally just have a moving background, which I utilize for actually making like live wallpapers for people to download. So it's kind of a cheat when it comes to photo mode with the Ghost games. And I've spent a lot of time in Tsushima as well as Ghost of Yotei. It's honestly kind of addicting when it comes to those, where you can just do all sorts of things and easily just have videos. You can just set something up and then just let it run, and then you have a wallpaper for yourself or to share with the community, of course. So that's definitely something that is a huge element of photo mode, where, like I said early on, there are tons of people on the internet where it's like, hey, they have millions upon millions of subscribers, and then you found them for the first time. I still feel like that's exactly how photo mode is, where even though there are companies literally advertising it like, hey, this is what we're doing with our game, the community is still fairly small. There's not a lot of people doing videos. There's still people just, posting pictures here and there and just kind of banding together as we can. And it just grows a little bit piece by piece every single day. But of course, with that being a big thing with the community, it leads to the lasting impact of photo mode, which is helping games live a little bit longer. And of course, there's the more corporate side of things, which is naturally just advertising. So has anyone ever played Forspoken? No. Has anyone seen the game Forspoken? Yes. Okay. So the thing with Forspoken is when it came out, it was not popular. It was basically panned. It was basically panned and it kind of just disappeared. The game has a photo mode. This is actually from the demo of the photo mode that I played before the game even released. And I didn't really even like the photo mode that much, but when the game came out, it just came out and it kind of just disappeared. But you can still find photo mode pictures of this game very rarely. I looked it up the last time I did this panel and I couldn't find anything, but there's pictures here and there. But photo mode can help a game last a little bit longer. It can't help a game survive, but it can keep it in the zeitgeist where people are like, hey, even if I didn't enjoy the story or I probably barely even experienced the game itself, it's something that people can enjoy of the game. You can show the art of the game, you can show the details and the work that still went into it. Even if a game comes out panned, unfortunately, there was still a lot of hours of work put into it, even if people don't typically enjoy the art. Like this is actually, honestly, this game is really an isekai. Like I didn't watch the story, but I know the character does something and then poof, she's in like a fantasy land, has magical powers. So it's really an isekai game. And unfortunately, it just got panned. Nobody really seemed to enjoy it that much, but it does have a photo mode, and even that can't save a game, but it can keep it around a little bit longer. Another game that I think is really in the same vein as this one is Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Very similar thing happened with that game where it came out, it was completely panned, and then it kind of just, now it's done. Their plan for that was to make content for years and years. It failed, and then they ended it a year later, and then now the game's kind of just made fun of, and that's literally it. If that game had a photo mode, I would still be playing that game. I actually got the game for free, and it's like, well, I don't want to play the game. I have no reason to play the game, but if it had a photo mode, I would have jumped into it because aside from the fact that it's a comic book game, DC also does not get a lot of video games in general. We have the Batman games, two of which do have actual photo modes. Batman Arkham Knight has a photo mode, and that's a very rudimentary one, so it's an older one, but you can still get some cool pictures there. And then Batman Gotham Knights, or just Gotham Knights, I believe. That also has a photo mode, and that has 4 playable characters. They each have different costumes, kind of similar to the Spider-Man situation. So you have a lot of opportunities there, but Gotham Knights is also in a similar situation. That game came out, a lot of people panned it. It's kind of disappeared. I just bought that game like a week ago because it was like less than $9. And I was like, it has a photo mode, and that's literally the reason I bought it, because it was so cheap and I was able to get it. This is Dead Space. One of my favorite franchises. Unfortunately, the remake did not have a photo mode, and sadly, one of the main reasons I hate EA is that they killed one of my favorite franchises on 2 separate occasions. So Dead Space is kind of just, it came and went. Amazing remake, amazing game if you're into horror, of course, but it's a beautiful game. Like, it's incredibly well designed. There's tons of gore and stuff like that, of course. It's a horror game. And it's incredibly well designed, very mechanical, all the suits, you can see a little bit of the details of the gore around there. And there's so much stuff that I wish I could capture in this game that you just can't because it doesn't have a photo mode. And one of the other things, and this goes into kind of the advertising and the continuation of a game, even from the more business perspective, Dead Space actually had a deluxe edition. And the deluxe edition came with alternate costumes, and they looked interesting, but it was like a $10 upgrade, and I just never bought it. If the game had a photo mode, much like with Gotham Knights just being on sale, it was like the photo mode was actually something that would have caused me to buy that game. I would have got the deluxe edition for that just to play around with it and have those other costumes that I could actually utilize, but it wasn't possible. So the game kind of came and went. I got the couple of pictures I could use, and then that was pretty much it. And then this, of course, is Tekken 8. This, I do believe, is the first fighting game. I have to look that up just to be 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure this is the actual first fighting game with a legit photo mode. Technically, Mortal Kombat 11 had it, but I don't know why they called that a photo mode. That was more of a model viewer. You literally, all you could do is rotate the character around, and they would do like one pose when you pick the character, and that's about it. So, not sure why they really called it a photo mode.
Strive, I think, had one the same. If it came up before this, I believe that one has a photo mode as well.
Okay. I'll have to check that out for sure, because I think all fighting games should have a photo mode. At this point, we hardly get 2D fighting games. Most fighting games are three-dimensional at this point. So they could easily have photo modes just like Tekken, Guilty Gear. I wouldn't be surprised if they did have that. But there's a new Avatar game coming out. That's fully 2D. As amazing as it looks, I would love it if it was 3D so we could get pictures of Avatar characters, because I love that franchise. This is Zenless Zone Zero. So once again, this is from the photo event that they did. This is from the second one. And it's another element of just that slow growth of the community where it's like, hey, it has that lasting impact. This, of course, is a modern game, so this is already currently out. But it definitely has that element of advertising for the game, and especially with it being a gacha game, that's incredibly dangerous for some people. But it helps games be advertised, and it helps them survive just a little bit longer depending on what they are. Like I said, with Gotham Knights, I literally only bought it because it had a photo mode. Suicide Squad, I got it for free, and I won't play it because it doesn't have a photo mode. The old Marvel's Avengers game, I got that for like 10 bucks. I bought it because I played the photo mode in the demo. Same thing. Like, there are games that I buy, I might wait until they're super cheap, but there are games that I will still buy years later because I know they have a photo mode, and if it's characters that I enjoy, I will utilize that. I will actually say like, all right, well, it's 10 bucks, it's super cheap now. I'll play this game because it has a photo mode and is actually worth that kind of effort. And one company that is very unique when it comes to that kind of effort is actually Nintendo. So for anyone that's unfamiliar with how Nintendo used to be when it came to just anything on the internet, they would drop the hammer on everybody. You could barely talk about a Nintendo game without having your video copyrighted or just shut down in general. They've gotten so much better with that, to the point that they actually have photo modes in their games. They have photo mode in Super Mario Odyssey. Mario Kart Worlds actually has a photo mode. Donkey Kong Bonanza has a photo mode. So they're a lot better with that. They allow the community to actually share what they've created and, you know, take pictures. You know, they have all these different costumes, Mario, Donkey Kong, driving around an open world in Mario Kart Worlds. They have all of these elements in there. So they've even gotten into photo mode. And I haven't seen them do any competitions, but it's clear from the way that, especially they used to be in general with the community and the internet, they've changed a lot, because they wouldn't have made that photo mode if it wasn't for the fact that they knew people were just going to share their games. So it's something that, regardless of the community or the actual companies, it's starting to become a bit more well known and accepted that this is not only free advertising, but it builds the community. It can help a game survive a little bit longer. If it's just a one and done game, if it's just, here's my story and you play it, you pay for it, you play it and it's done, you can go back to that game. You might share that game years later. I still see Ghost of Tsushima pictures to this day, and even before Ghost of Yotei came out, people were still taking pictures in that game because it's a very well made game. People were taking pictures because you could go to all these different locations, have all these different costumes, and it helps a game survive as it continues going forward. So it helps games last a bit longer. It helps with advertising. So on the, obviously the company side of things, they get money, all that good stuff. But for the actual community, it can help people realize different things within the games that they play. And that, of course, can lead to inspiration. So this game is Sifu. Highly recommend this game if you're into action games. I think it's definitely one of the best games I've ever played. And it has an amazing photo mode. So this is actually the simpler side of what they have in their photo mode, because something that they did, it was probably, you know, almost a year after the game came out, they actually added to their photo mode where you could literally play through an entire level and just record the whole level. And then when you go back into the photo mode, you can create an entire video from that. So you can pick any camera angle you want, move the camera around as much as you want. Everything is already playing out as you played the level, and then you just control where the camera is. And I've seen a couple people make videos on it. It's surprisingly underrated, actually. But you can literally just make full videos of every single level of the game and make it however you want it to be. So that sort of thing leads to inspiration, where people can find all sorts of things. Like I said, finding the minute details in the games that you're playing can lead to any sort of inspiration. It can lead you to realize that you like a different type of photography if you already practice photography. It can help you realize that there are details in games that you never noticed before, and it makes you look for those details in other games. And in general, it can just inspire you if you've never actually done photography. It can teach you how to do a lot of the basic things in photography, you know, depth of field, you know, obviously zoom in and zoom out, I think we're all familiar with at this point. And even though a lot of people use their cameras a lot more to take pictures, it's typically, you know, capture a quick moment, record something simple just because you're there, take a quick picture with your friends, and then you can really dive into it, where you would start off doing something simple like, oh, I just want to get a picture of this character because I like this character. And then as you get further into it, it kind of draws you in and it inspires you to take more pictures, or it could inspire you in general to learn more things about the game, because there are some photo modes that can actually help you realize more elements of the actual game design that you're experiencing. Like we mentioned before, things that you might not notice details of with pores or reflections in characters' actual eyes. Simple things like noticing that explosions are actually done in 2D compared to being 3D like the rest of the game. Obviously, I'm not going to be in a situation where I have a character holding a giant Gatling gun and doing stuff like this, so it can inspire you to find all sorts of sillier things, and it can allow you to get into different forms of photography because, of course, you can take pictures of the characters, but if you wanted to, depending on what game you're playing, if you simply like the architecture, you can do that. And I've seen that a ton, especially in Spider-Man, you'll see that a lot. People will just take pictures. It's New York City, it's Marvel New York, but people will just take pictures of it. People will take pictures of the streets. People will take pictures of just NPCs playing chess or drinking coffee or just, kind of sitting around just doing nothing really. And people enjoy that sort of thing. It inspires you to just play around and just do something a little bit simpler. And I think that's definitely one of the best elements of photo mode as a whole, is that inspiration of whether you're into photography already or not into photography, it can draw you in. It can help you see things that aren't typically on the surface, and sorry about that, and really give you that real world inspiration that you kind of have to come across. Like, it's something that if you're into photography but no one else is, photo mode is an easy way to do that. It's an easy way to practice without having to spend nearly as much money on, of course, buying a camera or anything like that. You can just play a game. Of course, games aren't free. Some games are. Zenless Zone Zero is free. Hopefully they'll add an actual photo mode to this and it'll be a free one. But there are also some other free to play games that have photo modes in them, and you just play around. You can just play around, you can have impossible opportunities, and you can just do things that you would never be able to do in real life with actual, real world photography. Some things, of course, blend. Like I said, you can get the architecture of a video game. Obviously, you can have old world, new world, futuristic cyberpunk cities. All sorts of different opportunities are allowed to you in photo modes because it's based on the game that you're playing. Cyberpunk is a game that I haven't had, but I do want to get that for multiple reasons, but one is definitely the photo mode. That was actually the main thing that made me even interested in Cyberpunk, was them doing an actual photo mode trailer. And I was like, oh, I actually think that's really cool. And I, of course, love the aesthetic, but the photo mode is what made me think I really want to get that. Red Dead Redemption 2 is very similar. Of course, it's Wild West. Also, something that I should definitely mention, if you play games on PC, you can get pictures of your mods through photo mode. So that's definitely something that I've realized is one of the greatest elements that doesn't really pop up. Of course, companies are not going to reference, hey, you can get pictures of your mods. They're not going to say that, but you definitely can, and you can have even more opportunities, swapping characters out and things like that. And that, of course, leads into this topic, which is like my favorite photo modes, favorite features and favorite photo modes. So this, of course, this is Ghost of Yotei, the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima. This is an actual wallpaper that I have up on my YouTube channel, and it was something that was just a rare opportunity. I just happened to be holding up this character. My sword was on fire. That had never happened before. And I was like, I have to get this moment captured. And so I decided to just add in the red leaves. You add them in. They have all sorts of stuff: red leaves, yellow leaves, green leaves. You can add in embers, fireflies, all sorts of stuff in the Ghost game. So it's definitely a cheat when it comes to photo mode. You'll easily get sucked into it because it's much easier than some others. But it was something that I had an opportunity to do. And so I was like, well, I have to do this. So getting live wallpapers is definitely one of my favorite things to do. Having just actual motion where you can have the wind and stuff like that, one of the best features in any photo mode. This, of course, is Spider-Man again. And this is me really just messing around with the lights, and you can see everything that you can do. It has elevation, rotation, ambient light, all sorts of stuff that you can do to either control the sun and almost get rid of the sun, do all sorts of really weird things. I mentioned earlier, changing the costumes. They have multiple levels of lights. As you can see, you can literally change the colors of the lights. One of the best features that they have is being able to use these lights also in different ways. They have a sphere light where you just kind of sit it. Then they also have a spotted directed light. So if you really want to get, deep shadows and stuff like that, all sorts of things that you can practice in real world photography, all the money that you would need to put into real world photography to practice those things, it's all right here. And it seems really simplistic, and that's because it's right at the tip of your hands. It's all in the controller, and you can do anything you want and also do, much crazier things, add filters, add stickers. And this is also one of the best features they have, is you could basically block out the environment and just have your character if you want like a detailed portrait shot, or if you want to do green screen. I've seen someone recreate the Into the Spider-Verse poster using the green screen from Spider-Man 2, where they switch the costumes around. Facial features, that's just fun. That's all this little shot is. Not a lot of games do it where every single character can do that. So had to do it for God of War. They do it, every NPC character, or every ally character, I should say, you can change their face around in God of War. Not a lot of other games do that, so that's definitely one of my favorites. And this is Star Wars Jedi Survivor. It's the second game in the franchise. And one of my favorite things in this is when you're doing the focal distance, they have an actual wall. So it's one of the easiest things to mess up is like, oh, I think that's in focus. Then you zoom in and you realize it's super blurry. Some games are also really weird about that, where it will be in focus, but if you zoom in to try to take a closer picture, it changes a lot of the elements of the actual shot you're taking. So in Star Wars, they just have a wall. It's just like, hey, whatever is touching this line is in focus, behind it and in front is not in focus. I know that Clear Obscure Expedition 33 just released their photo mode at the end of last year, and they also added like the little wall. Here's Tiny Spider-Man, another one of my favorite features. I think they just call this action figure mode. Yeah, action figure mode. So it just makes your character tiny. You can do whatever you want. They also have a ton of meme poses. Like that's why Spider-Man has the best like photo mode. They don't mess around. They do silly poses, actual meme poses. That was a Will Smith one. Make your character tiny. I've seen Spider-Man in cups of coffee, all sorts of silly stuff. So these types of features where you can just play around. That's the type of stuff that you can get from photo mode that you can't get in the real world. And this is also another one of the best features in a photo mode is literally being able to move someone's eyes. Only Naughty Dog has done this as far as I've seen. I'm sure, hopefully there's other games out there that have done it, but you can do the individual movement of the character's eyes, up, down, left, and right. And they also have presets if you just want, something quick. But you can have them look at the camera, whatever they're doing, look away from the camera, however you want it. And as you can kind of see in the little detail, her eyebrows realistically move. So it's not like her face stays the same and it's just left and right. Her face actually changes structure based on where her eyes would be. Another fantastic feature that they have is the frame forward feature. So in photo mode, of course, you want to capture the perfect moment. If you know that an animation repeats itself, you can try to pause it as much as you want, and you have to do it that way. But if a game has frame forward, you can just repeat the animation and then just pause it at the very beginning and just go piece by piece slowly. And with Naughty Dog, they put an insane amount of detail into their game. So even just reloading things is something that you can kind of capture, or particle effects or anything like that. You can do all sorts of stuff. This was something that I captured because it was actually a very rare occurrence where one of their frames actually maintains the color, like it basically blends the color in based on what you're actually looking at. So you'll have the normal stuff where you can switch whatever color it is, and then when it has screen color, whatever is in focus is what the color of the actual frame will be. And that's something I've never seen before. So it can kind of make it blend in a little bit better compared to being a specific color, black or white. And then this is the photo mode from Deathloop. Deathloop has one of the greatest photo modes ever. It's definitely, I would probably consider this my number 2 photo mode. And one of the best things about this game is you can move the characters on all of their axes, as you can see. Like, you can just play around with this one. One of the best things that they have in this is that there are 2 characters in this game. You can switch the characters no matter what you're doing. As soon as you go into photo mode, you can switch between the 2 characters. They each have, once again, multiple costumes. So you can switch between characters. You can switch between all their costumes. It has probably the greatest zoom out, although I did hear that Expedition 33 is completely untethered as well, and you can literally just look at the actual world. So even things that aren't actually in focus, like you can see stuff like pop into detail as I get closer, because you can just go around the entire world. Like you can see where characters are spawned in, all sorts of stuff like that. So it definitely has the greatest free cam, if not second greatest. I haven't played Clear Obscure yet, so I'll test that out when I get that game. But without a doubt, one of the greatest photo modes. And also one of the things that they do that no other game does is each weapon has its own pose. Like you can see, well, for a quick second you can see it, but I'll probably go back to that. They had poses for every single weapon. So you can choose your character's outfit, you can choose the character's pose with weapons or without weapons. And most weapons also have multiple poses. So you can have a character dual wielding a gun, single wield. Single wield has probably 8 different poses. Dual wield has 8 other poses. You can change, like I said, all the different costumes, comes with filters, comes with weapons, weapon variation, and you can change the skin on the weapons. That's something that you don't see in pretty much any other game. So I love Deathloop for that. I wish every photo mode did that as well. The one thing that they do that's weird in this game is that with it being a first-person shooter, when you go in the photo mode, it's specifically this. So you can't actually capture the action as you're if you're fighting characters and shooting and stuff like that. You can't do that. It's one of the weirdest things. If you keep it directly where your character is and you don't move the camera, you can capture it, but as soon as you move the camera, they go into poses, and that's the only thing that I don't like about the photo mode. You can't actually just capture whatever your character's doing. You can't, shoot a gun and then zoom out and see that your character's shooting the gun. They'll instantly go into a pose. So it's literally the only thing that they did that I don't really like, but everything else, considering all the options, being able to zoom out so much that you can see things, spawn and despawn, I love this photo mode. It's without a doubt one of the best photo modes out there. The aesthetic for the game is sort of a 60s pop aesthetic, so it's definitely a unique one for sure if you're going into that world. But without a doubt, one of my favorite games when it comes to photo mode, and tons of features that I really enjoy. They don't have lights, much like Spider-Man, where you can have the different lights on the characters, but all the poses and stuff, like the little things that are missing, they make up for in other ways. So that's kind of the trade-off with different photo modes, where it's like, this could be my favorite, but I still wish it had this feature. This might be my least favorite, but it's like, they do have that one thing, with the Naughty Dog games I mentioned. To this day, they still have orbiting cameras, but I love the fact that you can, move the character's eyes around. Now this, right here, you see this says trash. This is Resident Evil 8. Resident Evil is my favorite franchise on earth. I always wanted to have a photo mode. The remake of 2 didn't have it. The remake of 3 didn't have it. And then finally, when Resident Evil Village came out, they added a photo mode. And this is the photo mode. I cannot move the camera outside of what I'm doing. So the camera is stuck in this specific position. You can't move around the room. You can look around the room, but this is all you get to do. I'm not sure why they made it this way. Also, you can see the copyright at the bottom. Fortunately, that's something that Capcom got rid of. That's something they used to do. No matter what picture you took, it would just show the copyright at the bottom. They did the same thing with Devil May Cry 5. If you took a random snapshot, it would just be, like, as you saw, I shot the gun, I just have sparks. I literally don't even have the weapon that I'm using in the picture. But in Devil May Cry, same thing. If you took a random screenshot, it would have the copyright. Yes.
Do you actually think that this is partially a gameplay-focused choice? Because in a horror game like Resident Evil, photo modes tend to allow you to see around corners and get ahead of where you're supposed to be visually. Mm-hmm. So do you think that they implemented these limitations to prevent the player from, say, cheating a scare or an event moment?
I would say yes, but you'll see some other things that they did in this game in particular, where that's not the case. They just didn't do a great job. Also, in Resident Evil 4, they have a photo mode as well, and it has a free cam in that one. So they did change it. It's not limitless like you saw in Deathloop, where you could, check an entire, around the corner. So it does limit it enough to where you can't kind of cheat a lot of scares, but they did change it around. With this one in particular, I'm not entirely certain, and this is the thing where I say it wasn't just scare-based. This is the photo mode, and they just left everything up there. Like, this is an extra mode, it's called Mercenaries mode. They left the timer, they left all the details, they left all the health on the enemies. So I'm not entirely sure what their exact plan was when they were making this photo mode, where they didn't even get rid of just menu details to just let you take a picture. So I wish I could have been like, yeah, it was because of scares. They just kind of made a weird photo mode. Yeah, they just made a photo mode, and I was happy to have it. You can still get good pictures with this. Unfortunately, not in this mode, which really sucks, especially with it being the bonus mode, where it's like, hey, you're going to be in familiar locations that you might not be able to go back to in the main campaign. So you can retread those locations, but you can't get anything unless you just play the natural game, because it doesn't have any of these extra details and stuff. So I'm not sure why they did this, and that's why this has its own segment as just being called trash. It's really unfortunate. It's my favorite franchise on earth, and I was so excited. And when I first got into photo mode, I was like, okay, I can take pictures of a couple things in first person. And then I realized, I was like, oh, I can't move the camera around. And honestly, I think being able to flip all the way upside down may have been added in. Maybe that was there from the very beginning, I don't really recall, but there are just a lot of weird things with this one. Even being able to zoom in on characters and actually have like the correct focal length is something that's not 100% with this game. They even have it where the whole point of having these meters is like, okay, I want to focus on what's directly in front of me. Like, if it's all the way to the left, whatever's right in front of me should be in focus. That's not the case all the time. I've taken pictures where it's still blurry, and then I just turn it off and it's sharper. Like, it's better to have it just turn completely off, and I can see things closer to me in better focus, and then I would have to like edit it myself later. So I'm not sure.
You can check up the photo mode.
Yeah, you can. Fortunately, we're past this. Like, you guys will see, like in the final segment, you will see like they've moved beyond that. Resident Evil 4 has a really good photo mode. I love it. I've taken tons of amazing pictures. I just wish I could go back. Like, I love the aesthetic of Resident Evil 8. You go through, castles. Like, it's very old monster movie. Like, these are werewolves, so you fight werewolves, vampires. Like, everything is based off of kind of like old movie monsters. I would have loved to have been able to take more pictures of that, but you literally have to just be where you are. Like, whatever you're looking at, that's what your picture is. Like, you can zoom in on it, but that's really it. There's no moving around. Look left, right, up, down, and that's it. And if you're stuck in, you're doing an extra mode, they just left everything up there, and you would have to edit all that out. If even possible, you would just have to edit all that stuff out. So it's very unfortunate, but like I said, they've continued in its advance, which is why I'm hoping that as we go further with the 3 Capcom games that are coming out this year, they end up looking a bit more like this. So this is Resident Evil 4. This final segment, so this will be the last segment, then we can go into like Q&A for you guys if you guys have any questions or if there's anything you want to see as well. I have all of the pictures I have, most of the pictures I've taken. I've literally got thousands of pictures, so if there's anything you guys want to see during that section, you can ask. But for games that I wish had photo mode, of course, I mentioned Resident Evil was always one of them. We got it horribly in Resident Evil 8. And then fortunately, when Resident Evil 4 came out, they changed it. So it has all the things that you would want. You can get rid of characters, whether it's enemies. You can even get rid of animals because they have animals that walk around in this game. So you can get rid of actual enemies. You can get rid of animals. Some other games have that as well. All the different filters, playing around with the costumes. Once again, Resident Evil is often known for having unlockable costumes. I do wish, and maybe they'll do it. I don't really have the highest hope, but Resident Evil 9 comes out in like just under a month. I would love to see that have the ability, much like Spider-Man, to change whatever costume you've unlocked in the game. I would love to see that. So we'll have to kind of just wait and see. But with the amount of work that they've put into this game in particular, going from Resident Evil 8, I'm hoping that that works. One of the weird, unfortunate things is that there was a game that came out after Resident Evil Village, also made by Capcom, which was Dragon's Dogma 2. And apparently that photo mode, it was better than what we got in 8, but it was worse than what we got in 4 because Dragon's Dogma 2 came out after this, but the photo mode was worse than this one. So even though it's the same company, yes.
Just saying that I'm guessing for Resident Evil 8, they limited it because Ethan's model didn't have a face. You had to flip the camera around.
See, I thought about that too, because that was definitely one of those things where, like you said, they never, which is always a weird choice, but they never show Ethan's face. In that though, when you go into photo mode, they get rid of his body anyway. So like there was this moment where I was blocking and I went into photo mode, his hands disappeared. So yeah, so even though they got rid of the model, because that was definitely something I thought of, but then I was like, well, you get rid of the character anyway. So if I shoot something, even my weapon disappears. So even that wasn't an excuse that they could go with. I wish that was the case. Like if it was like, hey, they have their weird rule, I would have been like, okay, I hate it, but I'll at least accept it. But they get rid of the model anyway, and then they still keep you trapped in one place. And it's like, that's such an odd decision for the amount of work to get rid of a character model, but still keep me trapped where the character is. So I was happy that they changed it. Like I said, RE4 came out. This is Mercenaries mode, so that was the mode you saw in the last game where everything was still there. They changed that. All of that is gone. You don't have the timer or anything like that. And it's just a million times better. So fortunately, it's definitely gotten a lot better. I mentioned earlier on that for games I wish had photo mode, every single fighting game. The fighting game community is different from the RPG community. Of course, lots of different communities have overlap, but you go from playing, Horizon Zero Dawn to Street Fighter 2, or Street Fighter 6, obviously for a modern game. Different communities, different stuff like that. So I think every fighting game should have a photo mode because they put so much detail into those games, and it's almost odd that you don't get to see that outside of, maybe if they do specials and you see like the exaggerated faces that they make. It's like, you should let people take pictures of that. Like I love the Street Fighter franchise. It's one of my favorites. As you guys saw a little bit earlier, Tekken that's actually my favorite fighting franchise. So I was happy to see that, and I'm like, Street Fighter's right there. Mortal Kombat, of course, would be, the more mature version of that. I would love to see that as well. You mentioned Guilty Gear. I'll have to definitely check that out. I hope they have that too, because I love the animations for those characters and designs. So,
do you remember if it's like a photo mode, at least one mid-match, I think it's like a model viewer that you can do match poses and like you can do everything you can do in a match set up.
Okay, we'll see.
That's how that one works.
Okay.
They can unlock all the stuff though.
Okay, that's cool too. There are definitely some games that there's one game that actually has it where you unlock the photo mode, and that's Astrobot. Very odd choice. It's also a really weird rudimentary photo mode where you have to go through a decent chunk of the game to actually unlock it. And then once you do, it's actually set on motion control, so you have to be very still, and it's all based on that. So I've had some pictures where I took it and I was like, it tilted. Like right as I took it, like it tilted the controller. But it has it's very odd. It has like very little features, but if you hold the trigger down, the longer you hold it, the more shallow the depth of field is. So you can blur the background, but you have to hold it instead of it just being a meter. So it's a very odd way to do that, but you can still get some great pictures. Like I still have some pictures I've taken because you can have little characters dressed like Spider-Man or just like other gaming characters. So there's a lot of opportunity in that game. It's just a really weird way to do it, but you can still get some amazing shots in it. Once again, this is going back to Ghost of Yote, just playing around, getting tons of pictures and stuff like that. Open world games 100% should have photo mode every single time, because the amount of work that they put into those games to make those worlds worth playing, you should be able to take pictures of. Assassin's Creed, I think since Assassin's Creed Origin, once they kind of started the RPG style of those games, ever since then they've had a photo mode in the game. And I know with Assassin's Creed Shadow, they've actually done updates to their photo mode, which is one of my favorite things when companies clearly realize like, hey, there are a lot of people taking pictures for this game. Obviously free advertising for us. I'm sure the suits that don't care about games really love that. So they add updates to their photo mode. You get extra features. Like I said, Spider-Man being my favorite, they've probably had 3 different versions of updates for their photo mode. Every time a new game comes out, something has been added to that photo mode. So Miles Morales was the first time you could change costumes in photo mode. And then in Spider-Man 2 was the first time they did the action figure mode where you can make the character smaller. I believe that's also where they added the ability to move the character on the axis. So if you're in one position, you can move them left, right, up, and down, so you aren't kind of just stuck wherever you were standing. And that's also something I wish every single game had. I wish every character, or at the very least, whatever playable character you have, could be moved around. I wouldn't expect that for every NPC and stuff like that. That's a lot of work. But if every playable character could just be moved around on any axis, that would be amazing for photo modes as well. But there are a lot of different types out there. Like I said, you've seen the bad, like you've seen the worst. I don't think it can be worse than what they did for RE8. I think everyone can look at that as like, that's the end. As of now, I would say Spider-Man 2 is like the good side of where you should go for photo modes. And even that has features that don't exist. It doesn't have features where you can just turn stuff on, like these characters are really just in front of a fire. And I believe I have that set up as a wallpaper where it was just 2 guards. Honestly, they beat me up and they kidnapped me. But I saw this position, I was like, oh, I can actually spend a lot of time here. And I probably spent maybe 30, 40 minutes getting pictures of these 2 characters that after I was done with this, I fought them and then I went about my day. But I spent about 40 minutes just getting pictures because I like their costumes. I was able to, this is one of my favorite filters where it's black and white except for red. I also wish every photo mode had that where you could just pick one color that sticks out. Maybe we'll get there, but there are definitely a lot of photo modes where you get one specific color. Ghost of Yota has a couple of them. Red is one of them, and then I think yellow, because that's the main character's main color. And once again, this is Resident Evil 4, so this is Ada Wong. And this is Mercenaries mode, like you guys saw before. And this was something that I ended up messing around with because one of the other things that you can randomly experience in photo mode is dealing with particle effects and how it actually warps the camera. And during this moment, I was in combat and something really weird happened, and you guys will actually see that as it pops up. But it's one of those things where you can find lots of crazy stuff in photo mode, even if it's not really designed to be that way. You guys also saw it a little while ago with Control, where there was a moment where the character's eyes, I had like all over the screen and stuff. That was from like a particle effect. And so this right here was just, I noticed that as I was messing around, and I was like, oh, well, let me see what I can get from this. And that's something that you'll find is very rare, but you'll end up dealing with particles or some random explosion, and you'll realize it actually like warps the camera as you move into it. And then you can kind of play around and try to get really artsy-fartsy with it. And that's really all I was doing here. I was like, oh, well, it's not something that comes up very often, so let me play around, try to get this, because I had like one eye in focus and that was it. And so just little stuff like that, even though like you can literally see like right here, that's like her hair somehow warping onto her finger. Silly stuff like that you can kind of mess around with in photo mode. So there's a lot of cool things that you can actually do in photo mode that I definitely love. And there's, I'm sure, a lot more things that'll be happening in the future as more games end up coming along. Ghost of Tsushima also has a multiplayer photo mode with Ghost of Tsushima Legends. I'm assuming they'll bring that back with Ghost of Yotei Legends. And it's literally just, hey, you can turn on photo mode. Everyone has to agree to it, but you can go in with a group of friends, and as you're doing all the battles in that mode, you can just turn on photo mode and everyone can be involved in it. And I thought that was a really cool feature. That's something that I haven't experienced with any other game where everyone can kind of be a part of the experience. So I hope when Ghost of Yotei Legend comes out, with it being a few years removed from Tsushima and we've kind of grown the community a little more, I'm hoping that we'll see more content from that mode where people actually team up to take pictures together. This is, once again, Zenless Zone Zero. I'm really hoping that they make a photo mode very permanent. They've added more features as they've done this photo event. This was actually from the first one, so this was probably the beginning of last year, I think. And they've just added more and more features. I played around with mods on this as well, and getting just tons of pictures and stuff like that. And the character designs are already really, really well done. All the different filters and stuff like that. Once again, particle effects and things. This is going back to Naughty Dog with The Last of Us and the features that they have. Once again, suffering from orbiting camera. It's just an unfortunate affliction that they have in this photo mode, but it's definitely still something that you can work around with depending on the environment that you're in. And how you want to mess around with it and how much practice you really have. But you can, regardless of the limitations outside of Resident Evil Village, you can always find a good picture. Even in Resident Evil Village, if you know what you're working with, you can use the photo mode regardless of what it does or does not give you. You can find some great pictures to share with the community, share with friends, really just practice photography if that's all you really want to do. But as a whole, photo mode does a lot. Photo mode has a lot, and I definitely think it's, like I said, within 10 years, it's definitely going to be ubiquitous with gaming. It will be from top to bottom. Companies will see it as free advertising. People will see it as something that allows you to enjoy a game more and in new perspectives and new ways. Details on costumes, you can literally look at the ridges on the knife. That's not something you'll see in natural gameplay. You're trying to survive. You're not looking at the details of your knife or seeing that there's a little bit of blood on his glove, like right here. Like that's not something those are the types of details that they have in games that you don't realize when you're just playing the game. So that's definitely why I think photo mode is incredibly important, and virtual photography as a growing community is something that we will continue to see grow. Just as games are going, photo mode will be with it. But as of now, that is the official end of the panel. That is, my topic ending. If you guys have any questions, I'll definitely open up the floor. If there are any games you guys would like to see, I can actually pop this open here and I will show you guys. This is where I keep all my pictures. So these I have to post. I have 3,085 pictures in here. And this is where I have all of my other games. So if there's anything you guys want to see, whether it's architecture, any type of photography that you guys would like to see, I can find a game. And you just let me know if there's anything that you see or just anything in general. But also, if you guys have any questions about photo mode, please let me know. I'd love to hear it. So does anybody have any questions or anything that they'd like to say?
Good panel.
Thank you. I appreciate that.